everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my channel, Glam By Sam. Happy New Year's Eve if you're watching this on the day that I'm uploading this. Thought it would be fun to sit down today and share your favorite makeup products of 2021 so we can all know which products you guys loved the past year. I thought it'd be fun to do the eyeshadow palettes category in a separate video, and then I also asked on Instagram which makeup products in general were your favorites, and I got some responses on that as well. So if you want, I can make a video about general makeup products as well, so let me know if you want to see that. But today we are going to be talking about your favorite eyeshadow palettes of 2021. I asked you guys on Instagram to send me your favorite palettes, and if you aren't following me yet, you can follow me on Instagram. My username is @glambysam with 2 M's and an X at the end, and in that way you can be featured in these videos as well. I am going to be sharing the responses anonymously just because I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable that I'm sharing their recommendation in this video. But yeah, let's get started with the video. I do actually have a couple of these palettes myself, so the ones I have myself I will show you like in real life, and the ones I don't personally own I will put a picture on the screen. But the first brand that was mentioned the most was Natasha Denona, and we have quite some recommendations from Natasha Denona. So someone said their favorite palette of 2021 was the Midi Retro palette, which is this beauty right here. You guys know I love this palette too, so I can totally see why it was someone's favorite. I'm actually wearing this today, and I just noticed in general so many people in the beauty community absolutely love this palette, and I would have to agree that this is one of the best Natasha Denona palettes. It's the one I use the most. I don't like all the shades in here. Some of the shades in here I like better than others. Some work a little bit easier than others, but overall I think this is a really good palette, and I would definitely agree that this is one of the best eyeshadow palettes of 2021. I absolutely love this, and the color story is really nice too. So that was the Natasha Denona Midi Retro palette. Two people mentioned the Natasha Denona Bronze palette as their favorite palette of 2021. I can see why, because this is a really good palette as well. It's personally not my favorite because the shades are really warm. This is what it looks like. I will show these palettes up close as well. As you can see, you just have some really warm sort of like mustard tones in there as well, and I do think this is a beautiful palette. It is just not one I reach for a lot personally because of the warm tone shades in here, but it is a really beautiful palette, and I did include it in my if I could only keep 10 palettes video, so I can totally see why two of you guys mentioned this as your favorite palette of 2021. It is a beautiful palette. The next Natasha Denona palette I don't own myself, but one that was mentioned as well is the Glam palette. This is what it looks like. So the Glam palette is the one that has been on my wish list for quite a while because it has some beautiful cool tones in there, and I truly think that this is a beautiful palette. Like I said, I haven't tried it myself, so I can't really say if I think it is one of the best palettes of 2021, but it seems to be a very popular one. Another one that was mentioned was the new Glam Face palette. I thought I would include this recommendation in this video, even though it's not technically just an eyeshadow palette. I haven't tried this myself, but it is on my wish list to try, so I was glad that someone chose this as their favorite palette, because then it must be a really nice one. And the last palette that was mentioned from Natasha Denona is the Gold palette. This palette is so beautiful. I keep looking at this palette, and every time I really want to get it, but it is very expensive, so I'm personally not going to pick it up full price. Maybe if it ever gets like on sale, but I thought I read that this was going to be discontinued. I know it is a palette that a lot of people love though, so it would be sad if it would get discontinued. I think it is a beautiful palette, I just don't own it myself. Next up, we have two Charlotte Tilbury products. So the first palette that was mentioned by someone was the Charlotte Tilbury Celestial Pearl palette. This is the one with the really pretty outer packaging, and you guys know I love this one a lot as well. It is an all shimmer palette, so I would say that is the only downside to this, that it doesn't have mattes in here, but I personally don't mind it. I think you can still create a really nice cohesive look with this palette, and the duochrome shade in here is super pretty. So this is definitely one of the better palettes of 2021. It is one of my favorites as well, and I really enjoyed it. So I can totally see why someone chose this as their favorite palette. And then another one that was mentioned, I can totally see why as well. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Instant Eye palette in Smoky Eyes Are Forever. You guys know this is one of my favorite palettes at the moment. And then the inside looks like this, and you guys have seen this on my channel as well because I have talked about this quite a few times. I just like the variety that you get in this palette, and I like that there's like a dark brown and a dark black to smoke everything out and make it look a little bit darker. And I also like that there are still some like lighter tones in here, so really you can do a variety of looks with this palette. And I just feel like this is a really nice Charlotte Tilbury palette. These big Instant Eye palettes are always so nice and they never disappoint, so I can totally see why someone picked this as their favorite palette. And then from here, all the palettes that were mentioned, I don't actually own myself, so I was quite surprised by that because I do own quite a bit of eyeshadow palettes, but I'm really wanting to try some of these right now. So the first one that was mentioned 2 times was from Pat McGrath, and this is the Celestial Odyssey palette. So this was the holiday palette from Pat McGrath for the holidays of 2021. I'm not gonna lie, I have almost picked this one up a few times. I had it in my basket a few times, but I just never bought it. And I don't regret not picking it up because I'm not as excited about it anymore as I was when it first launched. I've always wanted to try Pat McGrath eyeshadows and I just never have because of the ridiculous price point. I truly think they are so expensive, so I would never buy one full price. But I have considered buying this when it was on sale. I just feel like this palette is very shimmer heavy, which is why I haven't picked it up myself, but I know so many of you guys love this. So many of you guys on Instagram are talking about this palette and how good it is, so I definitely see why this one is a favorite. And another one that was a favorite of someone was the Pat McGrath Labs Divine Rose palette. If I would pick up one of the big Pat McGrath palettes, this would probably be the one I pick up, or Utopian Dream. I just feel like this one is so pretty. I love the muted mauve tones in there and the rosy tones, but they're a little bit more muted, so I feel like they're super wearable. And this palette is super gorgeous, so if it wasn't so expensive, I would have probably picked it up by now, so I can totally see why that one was a favorite as well. Next up, someone mentioned the Patrick Ta Major Dimension eyeshadow palette, and I sort of have a love-hate relationship with this palette. I love it, it's so pretty. I don't own it, but I really want to own it, but I sort of hate it at the same time because it's constantly out of stock, you guys. I've been wanting this palette for the past months now. I'm like refreshing Cult Beauty all the time. It's never in stock. They posted that it was restocked on their website, so I really hope that it's going to be restocked on Cult Beauty soon as well. But yeah, I really want to love this palette because it's so beautiful, but I cannot own it because I cannot buy it because it's constantly out of stock. But I totally see why this is a favorite. It looks absolutely beautiful, and this is one I know so many people love as well. Then someone mentioned the Makeup by Mario Master Metallics palette. This palette looks so pretty. I'm not too familiar with it. I can't really say if the quality is nice, but it must be nice if it was someone's favorite palette. It looks super pretty, but if I would pick up one palette from Mario, it would probably be the Master Mattes palette, just because I feel like that one is a bit more wearable than an all shimmer palette, but it does look pretty. Someone also mentioned the Beauty Bay Wilderness palette. I know this is a pretty popular palette as well, especially among like British YouTubers. They seem to really like it. I do like the color story. I'm not a very green person, and I'm personally not like the biggest fan of the By Beauty Bay brand, but I can see why people love this because it is a pretty color story and it is a pretty affordable palette. I'm not sure if they still sell this though. Then someone mentioned a palette by Vive, and they mentioned the Vive Essentials palette. This is a super pretty palette. Vive is a brand that is still really high up on my wish list. I really want to try it sometime. The eyeshadow palette and the bronzer seem super pretty. So those would be the products I would be interested to try. But yeah, it looks like a really pretty palette. I don't know too much about this one, but I can see why it's maybe a favorite of someone. Someone also mentioned the Huda Beauty Naughty Nude eyeshadow palette. I know quite a few people love this one as well. She recently launched a new one too, which was the Rose Quartz one. If I would have to choose between the two, I would pick up the Rose Quartz one over the Naughty Nude palette. But yeah, it looks like a pretty palette. I haven't tried it myself. I'm not really into Huda Beauty, but I can see why it is a favorite from someone. One that I was quite surprised by was the Makeup by Mitchell Milk palette. I don't hear so many people talk about Made by Mitchell aside from British YouTubers. I have a group of people that I talk to that are British YouTubers and they seem to all really love the brand, but I don't hear a lot about it. Like, I mostly watch American YouTubers and I never really hear a lot of people talk about this, so I mean, it must be a nice palette that someone chose it as their top favorite palette, and it probably is a nice palette. I just don't like milk, so I wasn't attracted to this palette to begin with. But yeah, it looks like a pretty one. I have heard quite good things about Made by Mitchell palettes. I just haven't tried them myself. And the last palette that was mentioned was the NARS Climax eyeshadow palette. I had to look this one up because I wasn't too sure about what it looked like, but now that I'm looking at it, I know which one it is, and it definitely does look like a pretty fall toned palette. I'm really not familiar with NARS eyeshadows, and I'm not really familiar with NARS products in general, so I can't really say whether this is a nice palette, but it would be one that I maybe want to try sometime if I see it heavily discounted on sale. I'm really not going to buy it full price because I think I own pretty much all of these shades in different palettes, but it does look like a pretty palette. I'm just not sure about the quality of NARS eyeshadows. Let me know if you guys have tried this palette. Is it a nice one? Do you think I should pick it up? Because I definitely would love to know. Okay everyone, then these were all the eyeshadow palettes that were sent as the best eyeshadow palettes of 2021 on my Instagram. Of course, these are personal choices, so if your favorite palette wasn't mentioned, then don't worry about it. I would absolutely love to know in the comment section which palette was your favorite palette of 2021, because I know there are so many more palettes that people love that weren't mentioned in this video. But I thought it was so fun to do a video that was focused on your favorites instead of just my favorites. So if you did enjoy this video, then I would absolutely love it if you gave it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you don't want to miss any of my videos. All of these things would help me so much with my channel and I'd really appreciate it. But with that said, I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. I really hope you have an amazing day and I really hope to see you in my next video. Bye!